There are a lot of things I wish people were more honest about earlier in life. Like, not just motivational quotes, I guess you could say. Not advice shouted at you when you're already super overwhelmed. Just like tr- quiet truths, like the kind that you usually only learn by living through them. The first one that comes to my mind is not everyone is going to understand you. I know I made a video on it, but that one took me a long time to accept. I used to think that if I explained myself better, if I tried harder, if I showed people my intentions clearly enough, then they would understand and they'd see my heart and they'd kind of understand where I'm coming from. But the truth is, some people just won't. And that doesn't mean you're wrong or they're wrong. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you failed to communicate necessarily. It just means not everyone is meant to see you fully. Some people only understand the version of you that fits into their expectations. And when you grow past that, they get confused or distant or critical, and that hurts, especially when someone who cares deeply about them. I wish someone told me earlier that you don't need universal understanding to be valid. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need everyone's approval to move forward. And another thing I was thinking about that I wish people told me earlier is healing isn't linear. Nobody warns you about this part. Everyone talks about healing like it's a straight line. Like once you start, things just keep getting better. But that's not really how it works. Healing has good days and it has its bad days. Days where you feel proud of how far you've come, and days where it feels like you're right back where you started. And I used to think those bad days meant I was failing, that all the progress that I have made didn't count for anything. But that's not true. Healing doesn't just erase all the pain. In a way, it teaches you how to carry it differently. You're not weak for struggling again. You're not weak for feeling tired. You're not starting over necessarily just because today feels heavy. And sometimes growth looks quiet. Sometimes it looks really messy, or it looks like it's taking a nap instead of pushing. And at the end of the day, that still counts and still matters. Another thing I wish people told me earlier is being alone doesn't always necessarily mean that you are lonely. There were seasons in my life where everything got quiet. Fewer texts, fewer invites, fewer people around. And I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was falling behind socially or failing at life somehow. But I've sort of learned that some seasons are quieter on purpose. Sometimes life pulls people away so you can finally hear yourself. Sometimes distance isn't necessarily a punishment, it's just preparation. And not every attempt or every empty space is meant to be filled immediately. Some of it is just room to grow. And being alone doesn't mean that you are unlovable. It doesn't mean you're unwanted. Sometimes it just means that you're making a lot of changes in your life. And change can feel lonely before it feels right. But at the end of the day, it's necessary, and the people who want to stay will stay through the change. Another truth I wish people talked about more is that effort doesn't always get noticed or reciprocated. And this one hurts because we're taught that hard work pays off, that efforts are always rewarded, that if you try your best, people will see it and praise it. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're fighting battles that nobody else even knows about. Sometimes you're doing your absolute best just to get through the day. And nobody claps, nobody checks in, nobody says, I see you. And that can make you feel invisible. But your effort still matters, even if it is unseen, even if it is unacknowledged. You don't need an audience for your growth to be real. Some of the strongest progress happens in silence. And another thing I wish someone told me earlier is that you are allowed to outgrow people, especially if they're not fit for you anymore. This one comes with guilt, a lot of guilt. You start changing, and suddenly conversations feel different. You don't laugh at the same things. You don't want the same future you did maybe even a year ago. And instead of accepting that, you just blame yourself. I know I did. But I used to think that I was becoming cold or distant or fake, whatever it may be. But I want you to look at it like this. Outgrowing people doesn't make you heartless, it just makes you human. Growth doesn't always happen together, you know? Some people are meant for a chapter, not the whole book. And letting go doesn't mean that you hate them. It just means you're honoring who you are becoming and who you want to be. And yes, it is very, very hard, but sometimes it's necessary. I was also thinking about this a lot yesterday. I wish people were honest about, like, you don't have to have everything figured out, especially if you're young. So many people pretend they know exactly what they're doing when they're doing it. And I promise you they don't. Most people are just guessing. Most people are adjusting as they go. And most people are just learning through mistakes that they don't really broadcast or talk about. And you're not behind because you're unsure of what you want to do right this very moment for the rest of your life. And you're not falling behind because you're still looking. You're not weak because you don't have all the answers. Progress isn't necessarily about certainty. It's about movement, taking the steps. And sorry, there's a lot of these. I've just been thinking a lot. But I wish people told me that you are allowed to take your time. This one kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. But life isn't a race, even though it does feel like one. Everyone's timeline looks different. Some people find their path early. Some people take longer. Neither one is wrong or even doing it right. There is no right way to life. Rushing your life just to keep up with others only leads to burnout and regret. And it's okay to slow down. It's okay to hit pause. It's okay to figure things out at your own pace. And finally, maybe one of the most important things that I wish somebody told me earlier is you're doing better than you think. The fact that you care, the fact that you reflect, the fact that you're trying even when you don't want to, and life is getting you down, that matters. It's important. It's so easy to overlook your own progress when you're living inside your head every day. You see every mistake, every single delay, every moment where you didn't show up in the ways that you wanted to. And because of that, you start to convince yourself that you're failing or you're falling behind and that you're not doing enough. But you don't see what you've already survived, or you don't see how many times you wanted to give up, but you didn't because you're still here. And you didn't see how much stronger you are compared to who you used to be. In the moment, it's so easy to forget and so easy to not see the growth that happened quietly without attention or praise. And you see all these wrongs, but you forget where you started. If you're someone who reflects, who questions themselves, who wants to grow, who wants to be better, that already says a lot about you. People who don't care don't think this deeply. They don't feel this much or try this hard. I promise you, trying counts, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like it. Getting out of bed on those days you don't want to counts. Choosing not to quit when quitting feels easier counts. Learning from your mistakes instead of running from them counts. Progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like not giving up on yourself, even when you don't fully believe in yourself yet. And I wish somebody told me that it's okay to be proud of that. You don't need to wait until everything is perfect to acknowledge your growth. You don't need to reach some imaginary finish line to say, yes, I've come a long way. You're allowed to give yourself credit for still being here, for still trying, for still caring. That matters so much more than you think. So, if you're watching this and any part of this related to you, just know this wasn't meant to pressure you. It was just meant to remind you that you're not broken, that you're not weak, that you're not falling behind in life. You're learning, you're growing, you're becoming. And that process is allowed to be slow. It's allowed to be messy. It's allowed to take time. Thank you all for sitting with me through this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being honest enough with yourselves to even click on the video like this. Nobody told you today. I'm proud of you. And I hope you're learning to be proud of yourself too. Editor's note, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for your support on TikTok. I have gained almost like 200 followers in the last 5 days, which is just insane. I'm almost at 700 followers already. Your guys' support means the world, and I would like to apologize for the super inconsistent posting times on YouTube. I'm going to start posting one video every day for the next 30 days, just to get more comfortable, get out there, and see how that goes. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and as always, stay rolly.